Ryan's hand gripped my wrist tightly, his knuckles turning white as he leaned over the hospital bed. His breath hot against my ear. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only other sound in the room, a rhythmic counterpoint to the thudding of my own terrified heart. I looked up at him, my eyes searching his face for comfort, for love, for anything resembling the man I thought I knew. I had just pushed a human being out of my body. Our daughter lay in the bassinet next to me, wrapped in a pink blanket, finally asleep after hours of crying. I expected Ryan to kiss my forehead. I expected him to tell me we did it. Instead, he leaned in closer, his blue eyes cold and lifeless, and whispered the words that would burn themselves into my memory forever. I wish I never married you. Then he pulled back, smoothed his suit jacket, and looked at me with pure disgust. But what Ryan didn't know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He thought I was weak. He thought I was just some girl he could discard. He had no idea that I was about to turn his entire world upside down. Before I tell you exactly how I destroyed the Monroe dynasty and took everything they loved away from them, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You are going to want to see how this ends because trust me, the karma I served them was colder than ice. If you've ever been underestimated, this story is for you. Let's rewind. My name is Haven. Look at me and you see a pale girl with jet black hair who looks like she belongs in a library, not a boardroom. And honestly, that's who I was. I was an accountant from Chicago. I liked numbers because they made sense. They didn't lie. I had a small apartment, a cat named Miso, and a life that was quiet and predictable. That all changed the day Ryan Monroe walked into the diner where I was eating pancakes at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. He spilled his iced coffee all over my table. It was a mess. Napkins everywhere. Coffee dripping onto my jeans. He was so apologetic, grabbing napkins, insisting on paying for my meal, flashing this charming crooked smile that made my stomach do flip-flops. We started talking while we cleaned up the mess. He was funny, attentive, and seemed so normal. He told me he worked in logistics. We dated for 6 months. It was a whirlwind. Picnics by the lake, late-night movies, driving around the city singing to the radio. I fell hard. I loved that he listened to me. I loved that he didn't seem to care about superficial things. When he proposed to me in the rain, right outside my apartment building, I didn't hesitate. I said yes because I was marrying my best friend. But secrets have a nasty way of crawling out of the dark. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was at his place, looking for a pen in his home office, and I knocked over a stack of mail. Underneath was a magazine, Business Weekly, and there, staring back at me from the cover, was Ryan. The headline read, Ryan Monroe, the multi-billionaire heir to Monroe Global. I froze. My hand shook as I picked it up. Billionaire? My Ryan? When he came home, I confronted him. I was crying, asking why he lied. He looked so vulnerable. He took my hands and said, Haven, I needed to know you loved me for me, not my bank account. You have no idea how hard it is to find something real in my world. I believed him. I was in love and I wanted to believe him. Felt like a fairy tale. But looking back, I should have run. I should have packed my bags and disappeared. Because the moment I said, I do, the fairy tale turned into a horror movie. The shift happened the second I met his family at the rehearsal dinner. His mother, Catherine, was a woman made of ice and diamonds. She looked at my simple dress, then up at my face and didn't even smile. So this is the accountant, she said, making my job sound like a disease. Ryan's sister, Jessica, was worse. She hugged me, but her nails dug into my back. She whispered, Enjoy the money while it lasts, honey. And his father, George, didn't even acknowledge my existence. He just kept checking his watch like I was wasting his valuable time. I felt small. I felt out of place. But I looked at Ryan, and he gave me a reassuring nod, so I stayed. After the wedding, we moved into the Monroe estate. It wasn't a home, it was a museum. Cold marble floors, priceless art, and silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The staff wouldn't make eye contact with me. I later found out Catherine had ordered them not to speak to me unless necessary. A week into living there, Catherine walked into the breakfast room while I was eating toast. She dropped a thick document on the table. Sign this, she commanded. It was a post-nuptial agreement. We need to protect the family assets from opportunists, she said, sipping her tea. I pushed the paper away. I'm not signing that. I didn't marry Ryan for his money. Catherine laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. Everyone has a price, Haven. Don't pretend you're special. I stood my ground. I didn't sign. That was my first strike. Ryan didn't defend me. When I told him about it later, he just rubbed his temples and said, Mom is just protective. Just ignore her. Just ignore her? She was the matriarch of the house I lived in. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I stared at the positive test, feeling a mix of joy and terror. I thought a baby might fix things. I thought it might make us a real family. I cooked Ryan's favorite dinner that night to tell him. When I broke the news, the color drained from his face. Now? He asked. You're pregnant now? Not a hug. Not a smile. Just panic. When the family found out, it was war. Jessica loudly proclaimed at a dinner party that I must have trapped him. Catherine looked at my stomach with disdain, as if I was carrying a parasite, not her grandchild. The pregnancy was lonely. Ryan started working late. Or at least he said he was working. He'd come home at 2 a.m., smelling of cigar smoke and expensive cologne, too tired to talk to me. I spent my days wandering the gardens, talking to the baby in my belly, promising her that I would love her enough for both of us. The stress was eating me alive. My hair started thinning, my skin was pale, and I was constantly anxious. Catherine controlled the kitchen, and suddenly, my favorite foods were never available. The chef is busy, she'd say. I was living in a mansion, but I felt like a prisoner in a dungeon. Then came the labor. I was 8 months along when my water broke in the middle of the night. I shook Ryan awake. It's time, I gasped, clutching my stomach. He groaned and rolled over to check his phone. Now? I have a board meeting at 8 a.m. Haven. I couldn't believe it. I was in labor and he was worried about a meeting. He didn't even drive me. He called the driver, told me he'd meet me there, and went to take a shower. A shower. I rode to the hospital alone in the back of a black SUV, crying silently as the contractions tore through me. I was terrified. I was 25 years old, about to become a mother, and the man who promised to love me forever couldn't be bothered to skip a shower. Ryan arrived 3 hours later. He sat in the chair in the delivery room, tapping away on his phone. Every time I cried out in pain, he'd sigh loudly like I was interrupting him. Can you keep it down? He actually asked at one point. I'm trying to read this email. My labor lasted 19 hours. 19 hours of agony. Catherine and Jessica showed up briefly. They stood at the foot of the bed, looking at me like I was a zoo exhibit. She looks terrible, Jessica whispered to her mother. So sweaty. They didn't stay long. They said the hospital smell was giving them a headache, and left to go get lunch at a 5-star restaurant down the street. Finally, my daughter was born. The doctor placed her on my chest and the world stopped. She had my black hair and Ryan's nose. She was tiny, fragile, and perfect. I named her Autumn. For a split second, looking at her, I forgot the pain. I forgot the cruelty. I felt powerful. Then the room cleared out. The nurses left us to bond. Ryan stood up, put his phone in his pocket, and walked over to the bed. This was the moment. The moment he would fall in love with his daughter. The moment he would apologize. He leaned in. I smelled his expensive aftershave mixed with the sterile hospital air. That's when he whispered it. I wish I never married you. The words hit me harder than any contraction. He continued, his voice low and venomous. You don't belong here, Haven. You never did. And now you've brought this burden into my life. My mother was right about you. He looked at Autumn with zero emotion. I'm going to the office. Don't expect me home tonight. And he walked out. He just turned his back and walked out the door, leaving me holding our newborn daughter, sobbing so hard I thought my chest would crack open. I felt like I was drowning. The man I loved was a monster. His family were vultures. And I was trapped. I looked down at Autumn's sleeping face. She was so innocent. She didn't deserve a father who saw her as a burden. She didn't deserve a mother who was a victim. Something snapped in my brain. It wasn't a gradual change. It was instant, like a light switch flipping. The tears stopped. I wiped my face with the scratchy hospital sheet. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of my baby's head. They thought they had broken me. They thought I was just the stupid accountant from Chicago who would cry and beg for scraps of affection. They were wrong. A nurse walked in a few minutes later, holding a sleek black smartphone. "Mrs. Monroe? We found this in your bag in the waiting room." It was ringing nonstop. It was my old phone. Not the one Ryan gave me, but my old one from before the marriage. I turned it on. Dozens of notifications popped up. Emails, texts, voicemails. But one name stood out. Maya. My best friend from college who I had lost touch with, because Ryan said she was a bad influence. I opened her text thread. The most recent message was from yesterday. "Haven, please call me. I found something. I know why they married you. It's not love. It's business. Call me ASAP." My heart hammered against my ribs. Business? I dialed Maya's number immediately. She picked up on the first ring. "Haven? Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm alone," I said, my voice raspy. "Ryan just left." "Maya, tell me. What did you find?" Maya took a deep breath. "Listen to me carefully. My cousin works in corporate law for a firm that deals with Monroe Global. He saw files, Haven. Ryan didn't meet you by accident. That coffee shop spill? It was staged." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What?" "Your uncle," Maya said. "Uncle Marcus. The one you haven't spoken to in years." "Yeah, he lives in Europe. I barely know him." "He's not just some guy in Europe," Maya rushed out. "He owns a shell company that holds the patent for the shipping technology Monroe Global needs to survive. The only way to get that patent without paying billions was a merger. But Marcus refused to sell. The only loophole? A family merger. If a Monroe married a direct descendant of Marcus's bloodline, the patent rights transfer to the spouse." I stared at the wall, my mind racing. I wasn't a wife. I was the key. I was a human signature on a contract. Ryan had hunted me down. The romance, the engagement, the love. It was all a corporate acquisition strategy. "There's more," Maya said, her voice dropping. "Since you're the key to the patent, the marriage contract, the one they filed with the state, not the prenup, automatically grants you a stake in the company to satisfy the patent laws. Haven, you own 40% of Monroe Global. And I bet they never told you. 40%. I almost dropped the phone. That's why Catherine wanted the postnup. That's why they were so hostile but never actually kicked me out. They needed me to marry him, but they needed me to be ignorant. They needed me to sign away my rights voluntarily." "Maya," I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. "I need you to send me everything. Every document. Every email." "I'm already on it," she said. "But be careful, Haven. These people are dangerous." "I know," I said, looking at the door where Ryan had just left. "But they have no idea who they're dealing with." I hung up. I looked at Autumn. "Daddy made a mistake," I whispered to her. "He thinks he holds all the cards. But Mommy just found Ace." I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. And I was going to use that anger to burn their kingdom to the ground. I picked up the hospital phone and dialed the number for the Monroe Global IT department. I knew the password to Ryan's cloud account because he made me set it up for him a year ago. He was too lazy to remember complex passwords. He used Monroe King 1. Arrogance. I logged in from my phone. I scrolled past the business emails and went straight to the security footage. Ryan had cameras everywhere in the house, even in his office. He liked to spy on the staff. I found the footage from the dates leading up to our wedding. And then I found the footage from last week. My breath hitched. There on the screen was Ryan sitting at his desk, his head in his hands. Catherine was pacing behind him. "You have to keep her happy just a little longer," Catherine was saying on the video. "Once the patent fully vests in 6 months, we can divorce her, pay her a settlement and take the child. We'll paint her as mentally unstable. It will be easy." Ryan looked up, his face twisted. "I can't stand her, Mother. She's so ordinary. And this gambling debt. If the board finds out I lost another $10 million in Vegas, the merger won't save me. They won't find out, Catherine snapped. I'm moving the funds from the charity account to cover it. Just stick to the plan. Get the baby, get the patent, get rid of the girl. I stopped the video. I saved it. I emailed it to myself, to Maya, and to a secure cloud drive. They wanted to paint me as unstable? They wanted to take my daughter? They wanted to use me and toss me aside? I wiped the last tear I would ever cry for Ryan Monroe. I got out of that hospital bed, pain and all. I showered. I put on the clothes I came in. When the nurse came back, I was sitting in the chair, applying lipstick. Mrs. Monroe? She asked, surprised. You should be resting. I'm done resting, I said, smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. I have a board meeting to prepare for. I walked back into the Monroe mansion 2 days later, carrying Autumn in her car seat. I played the part perfectly. I kept my head down, my voice soft. I let them think I was broken. When I walked in, Catherine was in the foyer arranging lilies in a crystal vase. She glanced at me and smirked. Finally back? Try to keep that baby quiet. Ryan needs his rest. I just nodded. Yes, Catherine. I'm sorry. The apology tasted like ash in my mouth, but I swallowed it. I needed time. I needed to let them get comfortable. For the next 2 weeks, I was a ghost. I took care of Autumn, I avoided Ryan, and I let them believe they had one. Ryan ignored me completely. He moved into the guest wing to get better sleep, leaving me alone with the baby. Perfect. That gave me freedom. While they slept, I was awake. I was on video calls with Maya and a team of lawyers she had assembled, sharks who hated the Monroe family as much as I did. We went through the financials. We found the trail of embezzled money Catherine used to cover Ryan's gambling. We found the emails between George and the lawyers plotting to declare me unfit. We built a case so watertight not even God could sink it. The date was set. The quarterly board meeting was happening on Tuesday. All the shareholders would be there. It was the perfect stage. Tuesday morning arrived with a thunderstorm. Fitting. Ryan put on his navy suit, checking himself in the mirror. He looked confident, arrogant. I'll be late tonight. He threw over his shoulder without looking at me. Don't wait up. I won't, I said. And I meant it. 30 minutes after he left, I put on my own suit. A sharp white tailored suit I had bought online and hidden in the back of my closet. I slicked my black hair back into a high, severe ponytail. I put on my heels. I strapped Autumn into her carrier. I wasn't walking into that meeting as a victim. I was walking in as a 40% owner. I arrived at Monroe Global Headquarters at 10:15 a.m. The receptionist tried to stop me. Mrs. Monroe? You can't go in there. It's a closed meeting. I'm a major shareholder, I said, staring her down. Open the door. She faltered, intimidated by a version of me she had never seen. She pressed the button. I pushed open the heavy double doors to the boardroom. The conversation inside died instantly. 20 heads turned. At the head of the table sat George. To his right, Ryan. To his left, Catherine, who held a seat on the board. Haven. Ryan stood up, his face flushing with anger. What the hell are you doing here? Get out. You're embarrassing me. Catherine stood up too, her eyes narrowing. This is a private meeting for stakeholders only. Security. I didn't flinch. I walked calmly to the empty seat at the opposite end of the table. I placed Autumn's carrier gently on the floor. Then I slammed a thick leather binder onto the mahogany table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I suggest you cancel security, Catherine, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the room. Unless you want them to arrest you. Excuse me. George sputtered. Young lady, have you lost your mind? No, George. I found it. I opened the binder. As per the merger agreement utilizing the patent held by the Marcus estate, I, Haven Monroe, am the legal owner of 40% of Monroe Global stock. That makes me the largest single shareholder in this room. And I am calling this meeting to order. The room erupted in murmurs. The other board members were whispering, looking at their tablets. Ryan looked like he was about to vomit. That's not true, he stammered. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't I? I pulled a remote from my pocket and pointed it at the projection screen behind Ryan. Let's review the current CEO's performance, shall we? I clicked the button. The video from the study began to play. Ryan's voice filled the room, whining about his gambling debt. Catherine's voice followed, explicitly detailing how she was embezzling charity funds to cover it. The plan to divorce me and steal Autumn played in high-definition audio. The silence in the room was deafening. I watched the color drain from Catherine's face. She sank back into her chair, looking old and frail. George was gripping the table, his mouth open. Ryan was frozen, staring at the screen where his own betrayal was playing on a loop. I clicked the next slide. Bank statements. Here we see transfers totaling $12 million over the last 2 years from the Save the Children Fund directly to the Bellagio and various offshore gambling sites. Authorized by Ryan Monroe. Executed by Ryan Monroe. I looked around the table at the other board members. They looked horrified. These were serious business people, and they were watching their investment burn. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I said, leaning forward. You have a CEO who is a gambling addict and an embezzler. You have a CFO, Catherine, who is an accomplice to fraud. And they did it all while plotting to destroy the life of the woman who unknowingly saved this company with her family's patent. I looked directly at Ryan. You whispered to me that you wished you never married me. You said I ruined everything. Well, Ryan, you were right about one thing. I am going to ruin everything. Your reputation. Your career. Your legacy. An older man, the chairman of the board, stood up. He looked furious. He turned to George. Is this true? George couldn't speak. The evidence was literally on the screen behind him. I move for an immediate vote of no confidence regarding Ryan Monroe and Ryan Monroe, the chairman said. And I move to have them escorted from the building pending a federal investigation. Seconded, shouted another member. All in favor. Every hand went up. Except for the Monroes. Security came in moments later. But this time they weren't there for me. I watched as 2 guards grabbed Ryan by the arms. He looked at me, his eyes wide with shock and fear. Haven, please. We can fix this. I'm your husband. My husband died the moment he walked out of that hospital room, I said coldly. They dragged him out. Catherine was next, screaming that she would sue everyone. George just gathered his papers and shuffled out, defeated. I picked up Autumn's carrier. The chairman looked at me. Mrs. Monroe, or Miss Haven, what do you want to do? I want a divorce, I said. I want full custody. And I want my 40% bought out at fair market value, so I never have to see this building again. The legal battle took 6 months. But with the video evidence, they didn't stand a chance. Ryan lost everything. The gambling debts were exposed, and the IRS got involved. He avoided jail time only by pleading guilty and liquidating his personal assets. Catherine wasn't so lucky. She's currently serving 3 years for embezzlement. I got my buyout. It was more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I didn't keep it all. I set up a real foundation for single mothers, one that actually helps people. I bought a beautiful house, not a museum, a home with a big garden for Autumn. 6 months after the board meeting, I was pushing Autumn on the swings in the park. She was giggling, happy, safe. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to see Ryan. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled, he hadn't shaved, and he looked 10 years older. He stopped a few feet away. Haven, he said, his voice cracking. I miss you. I miss us. I stopped the swing gently. I stood up and faced him. There is no us, Ryan. There never was. There was just you and your greed. I've changed, he begged. I have nothing left. Please, just let me see her. Let me come home. I looked at this man who had once seemed like a prince. Now he was just a stranger. I remembered the whisper. I wish I never married you. You got your wish, Ryan, I said, stepping closer so he could hear me clearly. You're not married to me anymore. And you never will be again. You underestimated the accountant. You thought I was weak because I was kind. But kindness isn't weakness. And now you're the one on the outside looking in. I turned back to my daughter. Goodbye, Ryan. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the gray city, a ghost in his own life. I picked up Autumn and held her close. She smiled at me, drooling a little. I kissed her cheek. I had won. Not just the money but my freedom. I had found my voice. So, to anyone out there listening who feels small, who feels like they don't matter, remember this. The people who try to crush you are only doing it because they are afraid of your power. Never let them see you bleed. Wait. Plan. And when the time is right, show them exactly who you are. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button, it really helps the channel. And leave a comment down below. What would you have done to Ryan? Would you have forgiven him? Let me know. I'm Haven and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.